There are moments in history when a single battle becomes more than a clash of armies. A moment when two worlds meet, two ways of fighting, two philosophies of power, two visions of what it means to rule. And in that brief collision, one age ends and another is born. This is the story of the day when the unstoppable Macedonian Phalanx, the very formation that conquered empires and reshaped civilization, met an enemy unlike any it had ever faced. A day when the world stopped to watch a legend fall. This is the Battle of Pydna, the final breath of the old world. War is never just steel and blood. It is pride, memory, tradition, and identity. And when the armies of Rome and Macedonia marched toward each other in the summer heat of 168 BCE, each believed it represented the rightful future of civilization. Macedonia, once the empire of Alexander the Great, father of cities, breaker of kings, master of the known world. Rome, a rising republic of farmers turned legionaries, disciplined, relentless, determined to expand step by step, province by province, war by war. And in that clash was more than territory. It was the question, which world would live on? The world of the Phalanx or the world of the Legion? To understand the meaning of the Battle of Pydna, we must journey back to the long shadow cast by Alexander the Great. For it was he who made the Macedonian Phalanx a weapon of destiny. Walls of men locked in lines, 18-foot sarissas stretching like forest spears, shields overlapping in perfect symmetry. A machine, not of gears and iron, but of flesh, trained to move as one. Under Philip II, Alexander's father, the Phalanx became the backbone of a war engine that shattered Greek unity and created a Macedonian power beyond imagination. Under Alexander, the Phalanx was not merely a formation, it was the symbol of a world order. The Phalanx was certainty, it was strength. It was the idea that unity could defeat chaos, that discipline could break passion, that order could rule destiny. But time changes everything. Empires age, glory fades, and memory can become a chain that binds the future to the past. After Alexander's death in 323 BCE, the empire fragmented. Generals became kings, brothers became rivals, cities became prizes. The Macedonian kingdom survived, but it was no longer the world-conquering titan. Yet it clung fiercely to the identity given to it by Alexander. And perhaps that is where its destiny was sealed. Because while Macedonia held on to the ancient glory of the Phalanx, another power was rising, one that thought not of tradition, but of evolution. Rome. The Roman legion was not born from genius, nor designed by a conqueror's ambition. It
This is where the
evolved,
line broke. We
war
cannot
by
repeat this
war,
error.
loss by
Next
loss,
time we hold the high ground with
adaptation
archers.
by adaptation. The legion was flexible, modular, dynamic. Each soldier fought with space to think, to adjust, to adapt. Soldiers used the gladius, a short stabbing sword made for close quarters where death came faster than thought. Roman shields were not just protection, they were tools of movement, leverage, force. The legion was not a wall, it was a tide, and tides do not break, they flow. So when the Macedonian king Perseus rose to challenge Roman
legions are
influence in
approaching.
Greece,
We must meet
the
them at
stage
once.
was set for an
Great king,
unstoppable
our forces are
collision
not
between
ready.
two ages.
Silence! We fight or we perish. The Spartans
Perseus
will
was
never
no
agree to these
fool.
terms. It is
He
suicide.
understood the stakes.
must dissuade the council
He
before
inherited
dawn.
the
We fought
throne
in
of a
his
kingdom
shadow,
surrounded
across
by
the
growing
Indus.
Roman power,
The world had
where
never
friendships
seen
with
such a
Rome
force,
were now
nor will it
chains,
again.
and alliances
Look
were
at what he
masks for
built.
subjugation.
Our loyalty to Athens is the only
Macedonia
guarantee of our
once
security
commanded
and trade.
Security.
respect,
They demand tribute
fear,
and strip us of our
or
freedom. We
even.
must
Now, other Greek states whispered that perhaps Rome was the new guardian of Greek freedom. Perseus burned frowned at the thought. His father, Philip V, had fought Rome before and had been humbled. But Perseus believed that Macedonia could still rise, could still reclaim the spirit of Alexander, could still stand as a force of destiny against the unstoppable machine of Roman expansion.
Do we have an understanding?
We do, my lord. You can count on me.
Perseus was bold, charismatic, and
lord.
confident.
You can count on me.
He secured alliances in Greece, bribed kings, influenced cities, rallied support among those who feared Roman domination. He rebuilt Macedonia's military strength. He revived the Phalanx, drilling it with renewed discipline. And for a time, it seemed to work. Rome saw him not just as a threat, but as a challenge to their very momentum. For Rome did not tolerate rising powers. Rome believed that any rival could become a future conqueror. And Rome remembered Carthage, so the Republic declared war.
We push south to the Isthmus and secure the passage by nightfall.
For 2 years, armies maneuvered, clashed, withdrew. Roman legions had victories, but also setbacks. Perseus had moments of triumph, but also hesitation. Moments that would haunt the outcome of the war. Eventually, Rome entrusted command to Lucius Aemilius Paulus, a seasoned general, calm, calculating, patient. He did not seek glory. He sought results. Paulus studied Perseus, studied the terrain, studied the phalanx, and he understood something few Romans had grasped before. The phalanx was invincible only when fighting on flat, even ground. If the ground broke the unity of the formation, the phalanx ceased to be a machine and became merely a crowd of men holding long sticks. So Paulus waited. He waited for the perfect ground to unleash Rome's advantage. That ground would be found near the ancient town of Pydna, near the foothills of Mount Olympus, where a dry riverbed carved ripples and uneven slopes through the landscape. A battlefield that seemed flat at first glance, but was treacherously uneven beneath the surface. The armies marched.
We rise as
thousands
one.
Of men,
our voices
horses,
strong,
elephants,
marching
drums,
towards
standards, the weight of centuries of history moving toward a single moment. The sun burned hot, dust hung in the air, and across the field, the two world views stared at each other. The phalanx, gleaming in the sun like a steel tide, shields locked, sarissas pointed forward like 1,000 silver spears ready to strike. The legions broken into cohorts, calm, silent, waiting. The world held its breath. It began with challenge, with provocation, with cavalry maneuvers and skirmishes along the riverbank. Roman auxiliary troops engaged Macedonian light infantry. Dust swirled. Arrows darkened the air. Shouts echoed across the plain. But this was not the true battle. This was probing, testing, feeling the edges of will and strength. Then the moment came. The Macedonian phalanx advanced. It moved as it had in the days of Philip and Alexander, beautiful, terrifying, unified, a living wall of spear points and advancing iron. The sound was not the roar of chaos, but the rhythmic, unmistakable thunder of men who had drilled for decades. Their sarissas lowered as one. Their shields overlapped. Their steps marched in harmony. This was not a mere formation. This was memory made flesh. This was tradition. This was identity. This was the echo of Alexander. And when the phalanx struck the Roman front line, it was like a wave crashing into stone. The Romans buckled, shields shuddered, men were impaled before they could even strike. Cohorts staggered backward. The front ranks fell in heaps. The Macedonian line pressed forward, unstoppable, unbreakable, an iron wedge carving through flesh and resolve. And for a moment, the world seemed to return to the age of Alexander. The Phalanx was ascendant. The Phalanx was invincible. But then came the ground. As the Phalanx advanced, the once flat plain became uneven. Dips, ruts, stones, riverbank slants. The very terrain Paulus had studied and waited for. The cohesion of the Phalanx began to unravel, just slightly at first. Just a ripple, just the smallest fracture in the unity of the line. But a phalanx is not allowed to ripple. The sarissas began to lose alignment. The shields no longer overlapped perfectly. The perfect machine began to grind instead of glide. Gaps appeared, tiny ones, narrow as breath, wide as fate, and into those gaps the legions flowed. Roman soldiers did not need the battlefield to be perfect. They shifted, they moved individually, thinking, adjusting, stepping into openings with gladius drawn. They got past the forest of spears, where the phalanx was strongest, and into the suffocating crush of close combat, where the phalanx was weakest. The Macedonian advantage vanished in an instant. They adapted. The gladius flashed, shields slammed. Men screamed. The phalanx, once a spear point of destruction, became a mass of trapped bodies unable to turn, unable to swing, unable to defend. The legionnaires moved like water, filling every space, breaking the machine from within. Once the formation broke, the fate of Macedonia was sealed.
The line is broken! Run!
Rank by rank, the Macedonian lines disintegrated. Soldiers threw down their sarissas, realizing they were now dead weight. Shields were dropped, armor was abandoned. Panic rippled like wildfire. There is no fear like the fear of a warrior who realizes his weapon no longer matters. Perseus fled. The last king of Macedon abandoned his own men as the field turned into slaughter. The Romans did not give chase out of rage. They gave chase out of certainty, because they understood what this moment meant. This was not just victory, this was the end of an age. The Macedonian army was annihilated, the kingdom was dissolved, tradition broke, identity fractured. The world of Alexander, the world of the Phalanx, was over. The Roman general Aemilius Paulus is said to have wept, not for his enemies, but for the turning of time. For he knew what had truly died that day, not men, not a king, but a way of thinking, a way of living, an era. One soldier later wrote, "It was as if the gods had closed a book and opened another. Rome would now shape the world." The legion, not the phalanx, would become the backbone of Western military power for centuries. The Battle of Pydna was not just a clash of armies. It was a battle between memory and adaptation, between tradition and innovation, between a world holding on to the past and a world building toward the future. And history has given its answer. The world belongs not to those who cling to what once was, but to those who evolve. If you found this story powerful and meaningful, then subscribe for more history that goes beyond dates and battles and reaches into the human heart behind them. Because history is not just what happened, history is who we are. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.